There is a specific kind of silence that settles over a home when the foundation begins to crack, not from a sudden earthquake, but from the slow, persistent erosion of respect. For 8 years, I believed Lisa and I were building a fortress. We had the house, the 2 kids, the shared bank accounts, and what I thought was a shared vision of the future. But trust, I've learned, is a fragile thing. It is like a pane of glass that you do not realize is cracked until the light hits it at just the right angle. My light hit that crack on a Tuesday evening over a half-eaten dinner. Lisa was not looking at me. She was looking through me, her mind already miles away in a place I was not invited to. She mentioned the neighbors, Mark and Jenna, and a special gathering they were hosting. When the words swingers party finally left her lips, the air in the room felt like it had been sucked out by a vacuum. I did not scream, I did not throw my plate, I just sat there, listening to her justify the unjustifiable, watching the woman I loved describe a world where our vows were nothing more than optional suggestions. She called it exploring, I called it the end. But the real shift happened later when she doubled down on her defiance. She did not just want to go, she wanted to prove to me that it was harmless. That was when she made the mistake that would cost her everything. She offered to record it. In her mind, a video would be a bridge, a way to show me that her physical betrayal did not touch her emotional loyalty. In my mind, it was the ultimate piece of evidence, a digital confession signed and delivered by her own hand. I stopped fighting her then. I stopped pleading for our history. I simply nodded and told her to do what she felt she had to do. That was the moment I stopped being a husband and started being a strategist. I watched her get ready that Saturday night with a cold, detached fascination. She wore a dress I had bought her for our anniversary, a dress that was now destined for a different kind of audience. As the door clicked shut behind her, I did not break down. I picked up the phone. Not to call her, but to call my mother, to take the kids, and then to map out the next phase of my life. I needed the house empty to think. I needed the silence to plan. When she returned the next morning, smelling of cheap gin and bad decisions, she handed me her phone with a triumphant smirk. She thought she was winning an argument. She did not realize she was handing me the keys to my freedom and the sole custody of our children. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations and silent observations. My lawyer, a man who had seen every form of human depravity, actually blinked in surprise when I showed him the files. He asked if she really gave this to me. I told him she thought it would save our marriage by showing transparency. He just shook his head and started drafting the papers. The courtroom was not the dramatic scene from a movie I expected. It was cold, clinical, and devastatingly brief. When the videos were entered into the record, the look on Lisa's face shifted from smug confidence to pure, unadulterated terror. The consensual defense her lawyer tried to mount crumbled under the weight of her own recorded words and actions. I walked away with the kids, the house, and my dignity, while she walked away with a reputation that preceded her in every social circle we had once shared. The final irony came months later in a grocery store aisle when Mark, the neighbor who had opened this box, confessed the full truth. It was not just one mistake. It was a calculated, multi-layered betrayal that went far beyond what she had even admitted to. Standing there, holding a carton of milk and listening to a man I once called a friend stumble over his apologies, I realized that the woman I had spent nearly a decade with never truly existed. She was a ghost I had been chasing, and finally, I was free of her shadow. The process of rebuilding is never as fast as the process of destruction, but it is infinitely more rewarding. I spent the first few weeks after the final decree just relearning the sounds of a house that was no longer haunted by her secrets. Emma and Ben, my 2 brightest lights, adapted with a resilience that put my own to shame. They did not need to know the sordid details of why their mother lived in a cramped apartment across town. They only needed to know that their father was present, stable, and no longer looking over his shoulder. I started a journal during those quiet nights. I wrote about the red flags I had ignored for years, the subtle ways Lisa had chipped away at my self-worth long before she ever suggested that party. It was a cathartic exercise in self-forgiveness. I had blamed myself for not being enough, for being too boring, or for being the reason she sought excitement elsewhere. But the recording she left me proved otherwise. It showed a woman who did not care about balance or partnership, but only for the immediate gratification of her own whims. She had traded a lifetime of security for a few hours of novelty. The legal victory was sweet, but the emotional victory was sweeter. I learned that justice is not just about a judge's gavel. It's about the moment you realize you no longer care what the other person is doing. When Lisa would call me crying about how the neighbors stopped inviting her over, or how her new friends were only interested in one thing, I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just a profound sense of distance. She was a character in a book I had finished reading. The final chapter had been written the moment I hit the save button on those video files. Now, as I sit on my porch and watch the sunset, I realize that the recording was the greatest gift she ever gave me. It was not because of the content, but because it stripped away every lie, every excuse, and every shadow of doubt. It forced me to see the truth in high definition. And the truth, while painful, was exactly what I needed to finally start living again.